Medvedev threatens to attack 3 Ukrainian nuclear power plants and facilities in Eastern Europe, NATO nations, and North Korea threatens to possibly down a U.S. airplane. On top of that, we'll also talk a little bit about the threats to the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant through alleged mines, what that really means, if anything. So we got a little busy schedule, but we're going to go through this fast. Medvedev, as you might know, served after Putin's initial terms as president, before his current terms as president. So he's the only living other president of Russia. And also Medvedev is the deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council. Oh, deputy chairman, what is that? Well, Putin is the chairman, okay? So he's like number 2. So when he talks, and he's been kind of the bad dog and throwing out a lot of threats, but this one is in response to an alleged attack by Ukraine with a Storm Shadow NATO British supplied missile on a nuclear power plant in Russia. So, and he's apparently furious of this alleged attack, and it's on this Smolensk NPP, nuclear power plant in Russia. There is been an alleged attack, alleged by a Storm Shadow missile that the Russians say they shot down, but they're showing images of some facility that looks like it was hit, although I think those images may be something else. They're definitely not, some facility destroyed, but it's not a nuclear plant facility. Maybe that was stopped short if this was the case. And all this could be propaganda too, as you well know. But Medvedev has been furious over this, and he's went on to say that the following. He says, if this attack on the Smolensk NPP with NATO missiles is confirmed, we should consider a scenario of simultaneous Russian strike on, and then there's some big long name I can't even get to, Pivdenorenetsky, Rivine, and the Kilmaninsky nuclear power plants. Yeah, forgive me, my Ukrainian is non-existent, as well as nuclear facilities in Eastern Europe. And then he says this, there is no reason to hold back. What? He says there is no reason to hold back. That is, if they've established this was indeed a NATO missile. You got to be kidding me. That is the most provocative language he's ever said. There is no reason to hold back. Yeah, you know, I've been saying, you know, the guys are saying, talking escalate to de-escalate. We're only a day away from the beginning of the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania. So who knows what's cooking here. Guys, this is a dangerous situation that could be coming up here. The decisions made in Vilnius may be the watershed events that may determine where this war goes, especially if we provide some kind of security blanket for Ukraine. Is that going to put Ukraine into a situation where it's almost like Article 5 of the NATO treaty? If so, even a security blanket, extended security, putting them under the NATO security umbrella, that's almost like putting them in NATO. And the whole war started allegedly to keep Ukraine out of NATO. So this could be crossing Russia's red lines, and this may be why the language has been amped up. But if there was an attack in Russia, see, Ukraine said they wouldn't do it. They said when they got these missiles, they wouldn't use them on Russia, the NATO missiles, long-range stuff. And if it is indeed the case, you can expect that the American administration may possibly dial back on sending ATACMS and F-16s, the cluster bombs and all that. But it seemed like Biden is pretty set on that. So where is this stuff going? In the upcoming meeting in Vilnius, by the way, it just so happens that 22 of the 31 NATO nations, or maybe it'll be up 33 when we get everything in, I think, are actually supporting direct ascension and fast track putting the nation of Ukraine immediately into NATO, just bypassing all the normal requirements, like, you know, you can't bring a nation in that's at war. Some nations want to fast track it or do it immediately after. Germany is holding out because Germany don't want a war with Russia. Germany is right there close that they know they would be snowed under, and they don't want it. So can you blame them? maybe Germany will be the cool heads to prevail in this and keep all these things from just cooking off like that. I don't know, guys, but the situation is that there's a lot to watch here. So I'm going to go on here and talk now about North Korea. See, North Korea is upset over the fact that we're going to be putting a nuclear submarine with strategic missiles in on the Korean Peninsula. And what their Ministry of Defense has come out and said is that there is no guarantee that a shocking accident, such as the downing of a U.S. Air Force strategic reconnaissance plane, will not happen. Oh, yeah, and that's just part of what they're saying. So they're really suggested, oh, there just might be an accident, and we just might, your reconnaissance planes just might crash. Yeah, that's very provocative. I mean, North Korea also has a tendency to be a little bit like Medvedev, but that's when you start picking specific targets and naming them, that is more than we've seen and heard before. So North Korea is definitely fit to be tied. They are, what they're saying is the U.S. attempt to introduce strategic nuclear weapons into the Korean Peninsula is the most undisguised nuclear blackmail against the DPRK. I guess that's the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. They think that South Korea and North Korea should all be one under North Korea. So, and it's kind of like China and Taiwan. So, and its neighboring countries, and a great threat and challenge to the regional and global peace and security. And this came from an unnamed military spokesman and with the Ministry of Defense. Well, that's amazing how they can make such provocative statements from an unnamed spokesman. But anyway, maybe they're afraid that they will get taken over, and whoever says these things might get hauled out and dealt with. I don't know, guys. But this is this is just a sign of the times that the nuclear rhetoric and threats is going up like we've never heard before. And of course, we've talked some about this notion that that Ukraine is claiming that Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant has been mined. And I read you the latest statement from the IAEA on it, saying, well, we hadn't found any mines as of yet, but there's certain areas they hadn't got access to, and they're asking for access to, like the roofs of reactors number 4 and 5, which are the ones that are in hot shutdown, by the way. They're not all in cold shutdown. Those two are particularly still in risk as reactors. And also some areas in the plant itself. So here's what the Ukrainians are claiming. Ukrainians are claiming this. They're claiming that the mines are anti-personnel mines, basically anti-personnel landmines, directional anti-personnel landmines. So what is a directional anti-personnel landmine? Well, if you've ever been in the Army, we had these Claymore mines. They were basically shaped kind of like this, big plastic plates with a little curvature on to kind of focus a blast wave, and you had some little prongs you stuck in the ground, so hopefully it wouldn't be kicked back when it blew up. I don't know how those little prongs we stuck in the ground was supposed to accomplish that, other than the whole thing was go off so fast it might not make any difference. But it had a metal plate inside, then it had explosive charge, and then there was fragmentation devices, probably like ball bearings, and it's all coated in plastic. And you could set it, it had a little fuse you could put in the top of it, and it could be set to a tripwire, or you could have a remote control device to set off. So if you're in a foxhole and you're about to get overrun, you could turn a little switch and it would detonate, and it would send out, it's worse than a grenade. It's, it just sends out a lot of shrapnel, will take out anybody coming at your foxhole. So it's a great last ditch defense for a foxhole, but you only might have one or two of them. And once they were gone, you had to deal with the rest of the hordes that come later. So so much of the first dumb sap that tried to take your foxhole. But of course, we train to take foxholes too. There's certain techniques, but if you Claymore mine or something like that there. So that's an anti-personnel mine. It's not a mine that's going to take out the reactor building of a nuclear power plant. I don't think inside or outside, other than you might damage control circuits, you might damage the plumbing, you might take out some critical facilities in the mine that could have a big effect on it. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you what that might be, because the reactor there is called a pressurized water reactor. And I'm going to show you a picture of that. So what could be at risk, but why it's not a super grave risk, my humble opinion, as far as I can tell. And that may be something else. Now it could, I'll show you. I'm going to quit yapping. Do a screen share. Ding, ding, ding. I've showed this in some other videos in the past. This is what the operations of a pressurized water reactor looks like. It's got 3 cooling loops, basically. You got the internal reactor water. Now, this water, it goes right by the fuel rods. It could pick up radioactive elements. So this water is highly radioactive. However, this loop here shouldn't be radioactive unless there's a leak or something goes wrong. I don't know, there might be some mild radiation, but it would be trivial, almost non-existent, because water molecule is, it's not a heavy anything. So what happens is you flow water in, it heats up into steam. The steam comes out and goes to the turbine, turns the turbine, and comes around. There's a third water loop that comes in from the cooling pools that basically condenses the steam back into water, which is repumped in here, and it goes over again. So this is how the pressurized water reactor works. Now, this stuff right here is in the buildings behind the reactor. You might have seen several times I've shown you pictures of the Zaporizhzhia. There's 6 of these reactors. There's a long building beside each reactor. This is the kind of stuff you'd find at long building. Like typically in nuclear power plants, the spent fuel rod would be in the adjacent building too, although they got spent fuel rod cooling pools outside at Zaporizhzhia, which is, I don't know, kind of strange. But anyway, so this is what you got with this. Now I'll show you by example what, like Browns Ferry don't even have this kind of an extra loop. I mean, this is all one, and that water goes straight to the river because it's generally not a problem. I mean, it would be very exceptional if this water would ever be radioactive. So what they might hit is this stuff right here. This could cause this to leak out. It could cause the system to lose cooling. Then you could have problems with reactors 4 and 5 since they're still in hot shutdown. They could have a problem. Meltdown, full meltdown, I kind of doubt it, but definitely that reactor would be shot, never be usable again because stuff inside would melt. And it could be the case you'd have a meltdown. It would take a lot of hydrogen gas to blow the pressure building. I don't know if that's possible in this case, like happened in Fukushima, but I wouldn't rule it out. I just, it's somewhat possible. But in terms of radiation leaking from this stuff, no. That's not a problem. But this is the kind of stuff that they would tear, or the control circuits that control all this, the rods and everything else, the control rods that absorb neutrons that shuts down a reaction. That's how you put the thing into the cold shutdown, or the hot shutdown, or cold shutdown. It's by the use of these rods sticking up down called control rods. Originally reactors used cadmium. There's some other element they're using now. But what they do is they absorb the neutrons from the radioactive fissile materials. All right, so I'm going to show you the other reactor here. This is how Browns Ferry, the one next to me, set up. See, there's all this is the internal water. It goes straight to the turbines. I mean, the steam from the reactor turns the turbine, unlike the other one. And then you got the cooling water, which goes in and out of the Tennessee River here, eventually. So that's just gives you an idea of the difference. Yeah, the pressurized water reactor is a safer reactor. It's a better reactor than what we got here in my backyard, 26 miles away. So there you go, my friends. I'm not so worried about those mines per se. The biggest thing I worry about is if they run out of the power to run those pumps. And I'm more worried about the cooling pools because they're not in a containment building. The spent fuel rods are not in a containment building. They may have some inside that other building. It's just a sheet metal roof over it. If those get exposed to air, they will burn when they're hot. Yeah, the fuel rods in the cooling pools that are still in their zirconium alloy cladding is what they're in until they get put into dry cask. Until that point, they're in cooling pools and will burn on contact with air. I've shown it several times before in my videos. The photographs of the test results from San Diego National Laboratories, it shows that stuff burns slap up, and that would release enormous radiation. That is not anything we want to see. So, my friends, that is still a problem. And if they run out of, it's not like immediate. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. Probably not this week. But those are potential problems that could occur if they don't find some other way to get water to replenish what they're not able to draw out of the reservoir that got drained when the COVID dam failed. So, yeah, they got that big cooling pond out there, but it's only good for so long. Maybe they'll drill a well and pump water out of it, but I have not heard no talk of that kind of thing happening. So they need to make some changes, but they got to keep the power to it, and they got to, so they'll pump, and they've got to have water. Those are the two requirements that have to be met for that plant to stay stable. And right now, I haven't seen anything to say or show that they're doing what's needed. Otherwise, there's a shortage of technicians there. The plant has not been maintained properly. There are risks. There are risks with that plant, especially the units number 4 and 5 that are in hot shutdown, and with the cooling pools. And the cooling pools can be catastrophic because, as I explained before, there's a whole lot more nuclear material on those cooling pools than there are in reactors. It's just not quite as hot, but it's hot enough to burn up and release lots of radiation into the atmosphere. So that is not a good thing by any shape of the imagination. And like I showed with the American guys, on the Nuclear Association Society, I showed you back a few days ago when they covered that. They talked about everything. They talked about the dry cast and they talked about the reactors. They didn't talk about the cooling pools. So, they just kind of ignored that, but the Energia Mass, Energia Atom, the company that runs the plants, they didn't ignore it. They were citing threats, and they were citing the threat and mentioned that, hey, reactors 4 and 5 are hot shutdown, not cold shutdown, and contrary to articles that a lot of other foreign journalists are writing. But the guys that own the plant told us the case there. So there you go, guys. So keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel, guys. This can be interesting. It can get very interesting tomorrow, the next day, when the meeting takes place in Vilnius. We'll probably have a good idea where this war is going at that point. And so, wow. And who knows what's going on. Oh, yeah, Russia actually wants NATO to talk about the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. So I guess the discussions are successful. Those guys might all be able to go home after the meeting ends on the 12th. If not, I don't know. Anyway, but even if they all go home, which they probably will, I don't think Russia would strike a NATO summit. I hope not. But then you hear Medvedev, who knows? Anyway, my friends, we live in interesting times. That's the old Chinese curse. The best thing you can do is get ready, prep every way you can. Go to growing a garden is one of the best preps you can ever do. Check out my seed links below to Tree Leaf Market and Eden Brothers, and look at my videos on how to do that. I got them posted way back. And check out, hey, get the food. Go to prepwithgreg.com. Specials there. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, bang the notification bell, and click on and share this with many other people, because the whole purpose of this is to get the word out so people understand you got to prep, you got to get ready. So let's get people woke up to this. Well, awaken, I should say. Woke is dangerous words. I don't like it anymore. Anyway, thank you for watching. And with that, I'm going to say, Greg out.